Joseph, thank you so much for being on Can't Shovel Hurricanes. Now, for people listening, Joseph is not a transplant yet. Joseph and I have a long history of working together, and over the last 3 years have become business partners. We are the co-partners, founders of the Fishman Nicosia real estate team in Toronto. To give people a little bit of background on us, I used to be the broker of record of a company called Upperside Real Estate that I started with my brother in Toronto about 12 years ago. And we started in the basement of an office building in Vaughan. And you remember those days. Oh, yeah. And if I'm not mistaken, you were the first realtor that we ever signed starting out Upperside Real Estate. You were fresh out of university. You went to Ryerson.
Yeah.
I remember that first intro. You just got licensed. You haven't worked anywhere before. And you were like, like all new hires, new realtors, like a deer in headlights. You're just starting out.
A lot to learn.
A lot. And you're looking for support and you're looking for all sorts of stuff. Now you have a vast background in real estate. Your family has built multiple custom homes. You've actually worked hands-on on building those things. So you have an amazing understanding of that. But I remember, it's funny, the first conversation I said, hey, can I call you Joe? Says, no, my mom would prefer if you call me Joseph. This is how long ago. You were very formal, very, respectful. And I'm not that much older than you. I'm older than you. And I remember that. And we built a really strong relationship. And I would argue to say that, we were a good part of your success in the beginning because we were so supportive. And there's a reason I'm really going into this detail, because when Upperside Real Estate was acquired, you were kind of angry. You were pissed off at us. You were pissed off at me. I think we felt like we abandoned you.
We built such a good culture together.
Right?
And I know that life was different at the time too, right? A lot of stuff was going on, and I just needed a little change, and then look what happened. Right?
You left, you went to another brokerage, but we stayed in contact, and it's the support I think we offered as a broker of record. And you still, when you had things that you needed to run by somebody, you'd still call me and we talk. And you were somewhat upset, and you kept saying, let's build this team. Let's build this team. And I'm like, Joseph, I just sold a brokerage. I'm going through some family stuff with my father, and I'm a one-man show. I'm not interested. Luckily, very thankfully, you showed me the way, and we built this amazing.
I think I kept pushing you.
Yeah,
I kept calling you. We got to do this. We got to do this, right?
And it was because of you and the kind of work that you do in our team to support us and specifically me. Is the reason we grew the way we've grown and built a relationship. And then about 18 months ago, I drop a bomb on you when I say, Joseph, I'm moving. I'm moving to South Florida. What was that like for you when I told you that I wanted to leave?
Yeah, that was, I was very shocked, right? I knew you were talking about it and you wanted to make the move, and then you called me and you're like, okay, we're doing it. Right? You said we put in the application, we're doing it. And I was so taken back because I'm like, we have something that we're building here. And even though we were in the, I don't want to say infancy stage, because we were definitely started, but we were getting traction and we were growing. I thought, well, we're doing something great here. Now we're kind of going to split up. But I guess after time and us talking about it and seeing what different type of business model we can kind of work with, I jumped on board, right? I was more supportive, saying, okay, you know what? I think this is a good move for you and your family, and I would love to do the same one day. But I also need to take care of the Fishman Nicosia real estate team as it was in the GTA, right?
Right.
But yeah, I think I've been very supportive with you and Francis.
Incredibly. It's an understatement to say that. But what I want to know is, at first you were taken aback. and you weren't really sure, is the team going to hold up? Are we going to be able to still work together and stuff like that? Now, fast forward, I've been here for about 10 months. I'm a licensed broker. We can open up an office here, Fishman Nicosia brand, if we wanted to. We are, we're signed on with Signature, and they've been incredibly supportive with us and told us when you're ready to build your own brand within the brokerage, we'll help you set that up. But now that like all that is worn off and we're totally immersed in working, what do you see now in the opportunity of growing this company that you didn't see before?
Well, first I can say that the model that we built and grew in Toronto, the great thing about it is that we can replicate it, right? It's not like we're starting fresh. We got to learn a new method or anything like that. The process is going to stay the same, right? We can agree on that, right? When it comes to our VAs or ISAs or OSAs, all that kind of stuff. But the opportunity that's different from Toronto to, let's say, the United States in general is that there's a lot more business here, right? There's a lot more people. There's a lot more money. There's a lot more real estate that goes on. And the one thing that happened when you actually said, you know what, I'm going to move to Florida, is that the real estate market in Toronto completely shifted. And we've seen it shift literally overnight, right? We were in multiple offers literally every single day. It was crazy, 20 offers on a property. It was hard to even find something for a buyer. Sellers were loving it because they were able to sell in 4 or 5 days sometimes, right?
4 or 5 hours sometimes.
Yeah. The same day, once it gets listed, it was already sold.
Right.
And then all of a sudden it just died, right? And, we know because we've been in the business for quite some time. You much longer than me, but I got over a decade of experience now that I was like, this is the time for buyers to actually jump into that market, right? So we did some shifting, but bringing it to the States, I think it's the price points are what kind of changes a lot of things, right? Because you know how the GTA is, right? We got price points from condos that can be little prison cells for like $700,000 Canadian, right? And you're looking at townhouses for over $1.1 million, and then you got the single family detaches, which are going for $1.5 million plus, right? And then depending on the neighborhood,
townhouses are still selling now.
Oh, 1.3.
Yeah.
I can tell you right now, we've been in multiple bids for 1.3 for a townhouse, right? And the difference is that, the same people in Canada that make $50,000 a year, they can't afford $1.3 million townhouse, right? But something over here, maybe someone making $50,000 can afford a $300,000, $400,000, $500,000 house, right? So you can definitely do more transactions, more work rather than trying to find someone that has the cash or the money to actually purchase something. So that's where I kind of see the difference between the GTA and let's call it the Florida market, right? And the Florida market's much larger. There's way more communities and cities. The GTA is very segregated in its communities and the area itself, but the price points don't change much.
So what you're saying is that there's tons of value here, right?
I would definitely say that. Yeah.
So we together, when we started moving down here, we figured, look, I'm not an anomaly. I'm one of many, many, many people looking to move to Florida, South Florida specifically. So we saw an immense opportunity as a team of being able to service people that are coming from Toronto down here that may or may not want to live here full time or move here, but they want something to have here today. And we have, that client base, we have the reputation, and that we've now expanded where we can help people in the acquisition. We could property manage that acquisition. We can rent it out for them. And the common conversation that you and I are having a lot with people is like, well, we might not be ready to move or snowbird to South Florida yet, but we don't want to pay the prices 10 years from now or 15 years from now that, and we do want to buy. So what we'll do is we'll buy now. We'll have Fishman Nicosia rent it out for us. We'll have them property manage it for us. When we want to come down, we'll make sure that they make it available for us. And then 5, 10, 15 years down the line, we have a place that we paid for, for 10 year ago prices, and they're just letting present value of their money just work for them. Because I see and you see and a lot of people see is that South Florida hasn't become a transient destination. It's become a place to live.
Oh, yeah.
Right? It's become a place to hang your hat, to raise your family. But I want to get to the specifics of you. And you said, I am not here yet. Why is it that you want to move to South Florida?
Oh, that's such like a long answer, really, right? But let's talk. It all started because of COVID, right? We can say that the world shut down, right? Fortunately enough, we were part of those essential workers that we could continue to work, and that put a lot of pressure on the real estate market as it was in Toronto, right?
Sure.
We've seen a big surge of buyers and the prices jump up like crazy, and I think it was just the way everything was positioned with our government officials and everyone that was kind of trying to put mandates on everyone. There was the masks, there was the vaccines, there was all that kind of stuff. And you know what? I didn't really say, you know what, that's not what we want to do, right? Me and my wife, we decided that we weren't going to go those routes. Obviously, we listened to the rules that the government was putting upon us. We stayed home, we did all that. But let me kind of bring it back too, right? My wife was pregnant with our first child. He was due in April. March, we had the complete shutdown of the world. Mm-hmm. So we were panicking. We're like, what the heck's going on? You know, we have a child on the way, and, you know, everyone's telling us, oh, this is going to be the end of the world, right? We got so many people that are going to die and all this stuff. And you know what kind of threw us back is when we went down for my son being born, we went to the hospital, and the hospital was completely dead. It felt like an apocalypse. Like nobody was in the hospital. We're like, what's going on? I thought, shouldn't this place be overrun if it was such a serious virus and everyone should be there getting treatment and everything? And it was quiet. It was a ghost town. The emergency room was literally dead. The parking lot was empty. So after we kind of went through our 2 weeks of oh my God, everyone needs to flatten the curve, to then now we have this baby boy with us, and now we got to be limiting the amount of people that come and see this child. We were like, this is just ridiculous, right? But we lived through it. We went through that. We were building our business too at the time, so there was a lot going on with us, and we worked through it, and you know, we did such incredible things. And then what really pushed it, I believe, was my grandfather passed away, and that was a tough time within my family, and they were just announcing they were going to put in this vaccine passport, right? And they weren't letting a lot of people see loved ones even on their deathbed, and we were fortunate because we just said, no, that's not happening. We had 20 people in our room, you know, on his last few days with us. And we held his hand, and we were there with him and for his final breath. And I'll cherish that, because if someone took that away from me, I think I would have been a little more bitter at everything that was going on. And trust me, there was a lot of pullback from the nurses and the management and everything that was going on. But then shortly after that, they put in this vaccine passport. And we just enrolled my son in swim lessons at the local community center. And right away, they sent us an email, oh, you need to show passport information before you get into the building. And we're like, well, that's a little unfair. And we had to pull my son out of that. And I was like, well, if we're going in this direction, what's the next thing that they're going to try to restrict us on or put another mandate on? And, you know, that kind of really opened my eyes to be like, that's not what I want to be raising my children in. And I don't want to be forced to do things that I don't want to do, right? And I do believe that your health should be your responsibility, nobody else's, right? If you want to eat 10 cheeseburgers a day, that's on you, right? If you want to eat clean and healthy and exercise, that's on you as well. Like, that's how it should be. But I get it. A lot of people were scared and they're worried about their health. But then, Ronan, you, for example, I think you were one of the first persons I know that got COVID around us, like in our circle.
Had it 3
right?
times.
3 times, right? And
I remember calling you saying, hey, I can't go out. I got COVID.
Yeah, and you were one of the first persons that I know that actually got vaccinated at the time.
I got vaccinated at the same time I got COVID, like literally days apart.
Right, and then I still Zoomed with you every single day because that was our form of communication, right? And I was like, okay, it's not that bad. Why I shouldn't be that scared of it? And then eventually I did get it, and yes, it did suck. It was a virus that
you had it twice, didn't you?
I've had it twice, yeah. And it sucked. It was a new virus. Your body's learning something new, right? But we got through it. And then I was living in the house with my wife and my kid didn't get it. My wife slept with me every single night. She didn't get it. So I was thinking, okay, so something's going on. I think we're being really lied to when it came to this whole propaganda that we can call it that was going around.
Absolutely,
right?
Propaganda.
And then friends started getting it, and friends that were triple boosted, and, you know, everyone was getting them. So I'm like, what was this whole idea of this vaccine? Because that's all they were pushing. And not only pushing that, I'm going to keep saying the government because it is
Look,
technically their fault there.
I get what you're going with this, and I'm very hesitant all the time to not make the podcast the COVID show, which is what I call, the news when I was in Canada. But now, fast forward to today, all right? You're down here on May 11th. The U.S. dropped the vaccine mandate to come into the country.
For traveling, yeah.
Everything is wide open. The world is as it was pre-COVID, and everything is called it back to normal.
Yeah.
Now that has actually happened, would you still and are you still considering coming in to South Florida?
Yes.
Why?
I'm still considering because the direction that our country, Canada, has moved towards has turned somewhat of a dictatorship. Like we've now done, I think it's Bill C-11, where it's our censorship bill, where they want to control what we're able to see on our social media or on YouTube, on our media, and that's not a free country, right? There should be a way for us to say, hey, I should be able to look at all the news, all the media, and I should be able to formulate my own opinion on
Look,
things.
the United States is thinking of, it's not necessarily banning TikTok. I think it's just a portion of, I forgot what the bill is. People are calling it like the Patriot Act Part 2. It's not just TikTok, but don't you think that's some form of control? And what I mean by control is limiting the exposure of what we can and cannot listen to is helpful, because there are other countries and other governing bodies that via social media platforms, and I can talk to TikTok only because, very limited understanding is that once you're on TikTok, you've basically given up all your freedoms and rights. I think the same thing goes for Facebook and Instagram and all that. Like they have access to everything. Google has access to everything. Should we not have at least some sort of checks and balances? And I'm not for, I want to hear about the bill that you're talking about.
Well, I don't agree with that, to be honest with you. I think it's on the individual, right? Like, listen, I can be the first person to say, hey, we were in a dark time. We were on social media. I was on TikTok just scrolling just to see local news of what was going on because the media wasn't telling us the truth of a lot of stuff that was going on. I had to delete that app. I know that when just say Instagram or Facebook, if I was on it a little bit too much, I had to just get off of it. And that's what people need to do. They need to make the decisions for themselves.
Right.
I don't think the government or any governing body should be able to make those decisions for people, right? We should say they should keep us safe, but sometimes their way of hugging us to keep us safe can actually strangle us, right? And that's why I'm like, you know what? I think people just need to make their own decisions. And that's the problem with what's going on is that you have people that see one side of the spectrum and then they defend only that side of the spectrum. And it goes both the left and the right and all that stuff. I think that a good conversation on both sides should be the most important thing. Let's talk about this side of the things and that side and formulate something in the middle. I always say that there's three sides to a story, right? His, hers, and the truth, right? And people love to just listen to hers or his, but like there's something in the middle.
Somewhere in the middle lies the truth.
Yeah, and that's where I think a lot of people have kind of forgotten over these last 3 years. We were never like this, even just amongst family members. How much fighting or just arguments that happened in the last 3 years because they thought this way and we thought this way.
Sure.
And it's like, I get it. Right? Like, I get your point of view, but you need to listen to our point of view, and we should find something somewhere in the middle that we can all agree upon. And that's put a lot of tension with everything. So I think maybe having that kind of go with this for the last few years, I was like, you know what? I'm kind of interested in maybe dabbling in a different market altogether, right? And let's be realistic. Florida's a beautiful state. It's sunny all the time. Like as fellow Canadians that are watching this podcast can probably say, we have like a good 5-6 months where depression kicks in because it's freezing cold. It's mucky. You don't see the sun for a little while. It gets to you.
It's a syndrome, right?
Yeah, and I get it. We all go through it together and we all feel it together. But it's like, but there's alternatives there, right? Like it's nice to be in sunshine and all that. And we were able to vacation during those times and be like, hey, I'm getting out of here. Let's go to Mexico or Cuba or like, let's go to Florida and the States or something. That we didn't have that, right? For a few years, especially for people like me that, we didn't conform and comply to all the rules that were being subjected onto us, right? So we were fortunate enough that last year me and my wife said, that's it. We're just going to get in the damn car and we're going to just get over that border and we're gonna go to Florida. And we did it. And it was a new life for us, right? We had a lot going on before that. There was, I don't want to bring anything political or bring up COVID, but there's the Freedom Convoy was going on in the States that people were thinking like us. And
The convoy, I mean, in Ottawa.
in Ottawa, right? Did I say the States?
Yes.
Right. In Ottawa, that people were thinking like us. You know, they locked us up in our houses that I couldn't tell if people thought the same as me. I thought everyone was against us. Everyone was just, we were the problem. And I'm like, oh, okay, there are people that think like us and agree with what we're saying. And having that vacation last year was an eye-opening. We spent so much time with you last year too when you were down here. You were just doing that transition, right?
And we were deer in headlights. We were still not formally down here. We had purchased a house, so we had it for that small window. You were down here. But you and I both saw the same thing. We were in the dead heat of COVID at that time. And then we come to Florida and you're like, whoa, wait a minute. People are living here?
No one's wearing a mask?
Everybody, people aren't dying in the streets.
Yeah.
Like, that kind of stuff. But look, even that, we are very similar in our views. Politics, we have strong debates. We argue, but we're a team and we support one another.
Yeah, we can argue and hug it out afterwards.
Yeah,
it's not a big deal.
but then that's choice and debate, right?
Yeah.
In the beginning, I was a COVIDian. I didn't want to. I locked everything down. Everyone thought I was wild. But we both come from very tight knit families, and we have very strong bonds. And it was the hardest part for me to leave was my family.
Yeah.
Same with Francis. Even though we have these incredibly tight-knit families, I still decided to make the move. Is that what's holding you back from coming down here?
You know what? I have much older brothers and sisters, and I got older parents, right? So I don't know if that really does it. I feel like if I did make the move, I think my parents would be the first ones to get a place as well, and then I'll see them plenty if they do decide to do that 6-month snowbird idea, right? My brother's much older. His kids are getting at that point where they're going to be finishing high school and going to university soon, so they'll be a little bit more independent. And I know that he talks about, I want to spend a little bit of time down there too. So I'm not saying it's necessarily family. I definitely want a little more security, right? Like more cash flow, more ways of making money and all that, because they still have a family to support. And
so is that your biggest hesitation? Not family? It's more a financial thing?
I think it's more of a financial thing, right? Because listen, I've been in the business now in real estate for I think 12 years. Yeah, right. Since you started Upper Side again, first real estate agent to join in, right? And it like real estate, it's ebb and flows. There's peaks and valleys like crazy in that market. And I feel like in the last maybe 3-4 years, I've really found my consistency and to grow the business. And I know that you helping out too with the Fishman Nicosia real estate team was a huge thing. We put more procedures and processes in to get things done properly. Right. And that's kind of also helped me on my personal side for my personal clients. And I'm at that point where I'm like, okay, now I want to go to the next step, right? The next level. So that's where the financial instability where I'm kind of thinking, okay, if that next step, what is it going to be? Are we going to push it to Florida? Right. And that is the goal. And that's the plan. We talk about this all the time, right? Just how are we going to do it? Because we are new to this market. But again, the processes don't change. We know how to sell real estate. We know how to talk to people, right? We know how to do our listing presentations and our buyer presentations and all that. So we've talked about this plenty, right? So like you're kind of,
but I'm here. You're on the fence. I don't know if you're really on the fence. I think it's something I want to dig into a little bit, but the overwhelming majority of listeners are in your boat, are people that are using the podcast as a resource of how to come down. They want to learn a lot about Florida. Hopefully we're relaying that. But the perspective of people that are on the ground here is one thing because they're here. The biggest challenge that people have is a psychological barrier. I went through it, still going through it, coming down here. And there's a couple of cliches that I now kind of live by. And, take the island, burn the ships. Yeah. Like, if you're coming down here, you have to be of the mindset of there's no way of coming back. There's point of no return. You're either in or you're not. Yeah. I kept also, certain things in my mind that, if it doesn't work out, I'm going to come back. And, I still have my business. I have places I can go and stay and stuff like that. But I can tell you that if you want to make this move properly, you can't be halfway about it. You got to either be all in or you're not at all.
Yeah.
And that's where I kind of feel like you're at. And the hesitation, and that you're all valid concerns, especially as a father. You got 2 kids.
Which makes things a little bit easier is that I have you here, right? So
Yeah.
I'm still working with you and trying to build something out here. And I know once we get it really going, the transition will be a lot easier. I'll have less on my head, on my mind to kind of give any of those doubts, right?
And that's what I'm trying to do here. That's what we're trying to do here.
Yeah.
But the first key for us, and I'd say there's a couple of things that you need to figure out first. Where you want to live, and the education piece, if you've got young kids, is the most important, because that will then drive your real estate decision, and it also drive your real estate prices, because neighborhoods that are in stronger schools, whether it's public or private, are more expensive than they are in neighborhoods that have lesser rated schools. And what we want to make sure is that if you're coming from Toronto, you need to sell your property in Toronto, we got you. You want to buy a property in Florida, we got you. You want to understand the lay of the land, we got you. A bunch of the podcasts were with educators on the public school front, but they're from Miami all the way to Boca, which is where I'm living. And the way our thought process went is, I want to make sure that people don't make the same mistake I did. You need to focus on your credit. Credit is key here, right? You need to make sure that you have enough cash flow for runway for what it is that you want to do. You're in a position where I'm going to be able to hopefully soften the blow of the move, but I'm not going to be able to take away everything, because I'm learning. I've been very fortunate to have really good resources around me, and I presented that on the podcast, and I want people to reach out to them. I want people to reach out to us if they have questions on how to do this, because we got you, right? That's the whole premise. Now, I'm sure people are thinking, well, Joseph's going to leave. Who's going to run the Fishman Nicosia team in Toronto? And we want people to know that we have a team surrounded on us, and we're constantly going back and forth. From a family perspective, when you've told people on your side that I'm thinking of making this move, what has the reaction been?
So it's been mixed, right? My parents definitely don't want me to go. They want us to be as close to them as possible.
Sure, makes sense.
Sibling wise, they're very supportive with it. I think when I talk more with friends, it's a mixed bag, right? I think a lot of people want to make that move, but they don't know how to do it, and they have a career in Toronto, and they don't want to give that up, and I get that completely, and it's a big deal, right? Some people have to make that move and decision on their own, and then I have friends that are like, "Can I come?" Right? That I have friends that are like, "Yeah, I kind of want to make the move too. I work mobile anyway, so it doesn't matter where I am. I'll have a job. So how can they make a move as well?" So it's been really mixed, and I get it. That's going to be common in any ways. You're never going to have everyone say, "Yeah, go for it, jump all in," or have everyone say, "No, you're an idiot," right? So it's been very mixed in that regards. Do I want more family to come? Absolutely.
They will come.
And listen, everyone's going to get a little older. What I've noticed, especially in the GTA, is that there are a lot of people that are making that move, and they are selling their properties for $1.5 million, $2 million.
You hit it.
And then they're coming down here, and they can buy a beautiful home with a pool, and they'll have money in the bank still, and they can invest that and create that cash flow environment for them so that they can sustain their lifestyle. And I don't want to say cheaper, because it's hard for me to judge.
The word is value. And that's what people see now. And this is where we saw the opportunity.
Yeah.
You talk to your friends, I'd say a cross section, legitimately who's willing to move in 100 friends or 10 friends, 2 might do it. Maybe, right? 50% will think about it.
Yeah.
Of those, maybe 25% will buy, and then some will actually settle. But what you still have here is tons of value. And I see Florida real estate market.
Yeah, I see.
It's in its infancy. This is like just the beginning. It's like you don't come here to retire anymore. People realize that there's tons of value here. Yeah. And in case something like, and I don't want to harp on COVID, you're talking about the bill, in case the politics don't align with your views, in case it's not where a place that you want to raise your kids potentially, it's nice to have an escape hatch. And Florida is still a very inexpensive escape hatch relative to any place in the world. And also given the amount of possibilities here from the ocean and just the number of people that are here. And I look at schools and athletics and the quality of people that are coming down here. They're looking to establish roots. Florida is like a baby. It hasn't even touched its potential yet. And the roots of people like you and I that are going to come here with young families, that we're going to build a community, hopefully keep them here, because like your parents don't want you to move. My family didn't want me to move.
But they're at that age too where they can definitely do the snowbirding, right? And enjoy them. And I tell my parents all the time, get out of here for the wintertime.
I don't think that they don't want to do it. I think it's change. And I think Canadians have so much PTSD left from COVID.
Yeah, I agree.
That they're scared. And it's going to stay with them. And this is what we don't want for our kids.
And what's really interesting about the Canadians versus Americans is that wherever you're kind of born in Canada, you kind of stay there, right? If you're born in Montreal, Toronto, Vancouver, you stay in those cities. We don't have that many cities that has that job opportunity or that growth, right? But Americans, it's so funny. Like, we were just at the restaurant the other day, and the lady that's serving us, wonderful lady, she's like, oh, I'm from Ohio, but she's working in Florida. Like, it shows you that they can pick up and move and find different opportunities, even if it's for political reasons, right? You don't like how your state or city is being run? Well, there's a state or city that will kind of conform to what you like better, right? And that's what the beauty of the United States really is, right? Like when they say freedom, like you have that freedom to kind of pick up and move. You get choices. So like if just say I was unhappy the way Toronto kind of dealt with everything, right? And I'm not unhappy with Toronto. I think I love the city of Toronto. It's a world-class city, right? But would I go to Montreal? No, I don't speak French, right? So it's going to be a different environment there. Vancouver would be beautiful, but they have even a worse housing crisis than Toronto, right? And they're kind of built in this like valley, so it's not like they can build out. Like there's definitely the most opportunity would be in Toronto. Would I go to the Maritimes? Probably not.
It doesn't have the financial infrastructure, but now that you're working more from home, you can do more. And a lot of people did move to other areas within Canada that were still hugely affordable, like relative to Vancouver, Toronto, or the main cities, right?
I didn't see everyone flocking to Alberta, right? Maybe if the oil business was booming as it once did, then we know a lot of people that head out there, right, make their bag and then come back, but it's not there, right? So like you got to find that opportunity. There needs to be money around you so you can take a piece of the pie.
I remember driving with my brother in a U-Haul, bringing basically a 26-foot U-Haul, bringing what was just pretty much my kids' toys because we don't have basements here. We had to purge a lot of stuff. By the way, incredibly liberating for anybody who asks. Like once you get rid of a lot of junk, it feels really good. It's hard to part ways with it, but when you do, it is wow. So I'm on a U-Haul, and my brother was like, he was worried about me, and he was kind, and he came for a drive with me, and the entire time, it was a 3-day trip. We broke it up into 2 nights. He's asking me, he's like, why are you doing this, man? Like you've got a business, you've got family, you've got all stuff. Why are you doing this? So I said to him, look, my brother just turned 50. You know, he's incredibly established in what he does. He's got older kids. Him and his wife, are pillars of their own community. And he's like, why are you doing this? And I said, 5 to 10 years from now, are you going to want to own a place in Florida, probably in South Florida? He's got a bunch of friends that have condos in Sunny Isles and whatever. And he's like, yeah. I'm like, I don't want to wait. I want it now. And I think that was the first time that it kind of made sense and I articulated it correctly, because for the first little while, I felt like I was defending my position. I was constantly trying to explain, well, I want to do this, I want to do this, I want to do that. But my why was, instead of me complaining about government, COVID, vaccine passports, all that shit, I just said, look, I can either complain about it consistently or I can just do it. And we decided to do it. And change is good. It's terrifying, but it's good. It forces you to do things you never expected to do.
And it helps you grow as a person.
I would have never had a podcast in Toronto.
Yeah.
Right? And this has now become a platform where I can meet the coolest people. I can have raw conversations that are authentic. People can really give their opinions. People want to help out. That's the one thing that people don't realize. When you come down here, you're on your own, but you'll find your people. and you'll find a lot of amazing people. And because Florida is such a transient place full of transplants and people that have been through it, you would be surprised how helpful and kind they are. And I don't want to spend time just shitting on Canada and all this stuff. I know.
Are you kidding me? I'm a patriot of Canada. I love that
Pre-COVID,
country.
would you have ever considered ever leaving Canada?
No. To be honest, I wouldn't.
Yeah, it was a trigger, right?
Yeah, I love it there, right? The one thing, and you can talk to any of my friends and family, I hate the cold. As a Canadian, I hate the cold. It is not like just the AC in this building right now is bothering me, right? Like I want heat all the time. And like that's been my major thing when it came to Canada. But we had hockey, right? We had things that kind of got us through it. We go on our little vacation. We're not talking about the Leafs. No, that's like COVID. Just we're not going to talk about it.
Try not to swear, but I mean that's the one that really.
Yeah, I can go on a.
It's fresh right now. No, don't do that. Yeah. Okay. So the weather. I know that the weather is great. It has some nasty times.
Summertime in Canada, in Toronto, like
beautiful.
It's gorgeous. Like when you go up north and you go to that Muskoka and you go camp, just the greenery in our bedrock, the Canadian Shield, our lakes, it's a great time.
Dude, Canadian summers are the best 3 weeks you'll ever spend.
The best 3 weeks. Yeah, you know what? If depending on the weather, you're probably
it is the best 3 weeks
right?
ever.
And that's why I'm like, you know what? Maybe it's time. Like exactly what you just said there, where you're like, why do I got to wait till I'm 65 when I retire?
Are you going to make the move? I'm calling it out. Are you actually going to make this?
Yeah, me and my wife, we talk about it all the time.
When?
So when did I tell you? I said that by 2024 was our kind of our deadline to everything, right? So that's why we
need to start your application now because they're so backlogged. There's so many people coming.
And you know what's crazy is that we know so many people that have picked up and left. Not necessarily going to Florida, right? We know a couple of people that went to Texas. We know a couple of people that went to Arizona, right? They're finding their place, right? That's all it is. You just find the area that kind of that fits you as best as it can, right? And listen, we used to come to Florida as a kid twice a year. My dad used to drive down on Christmas time and on March break, drive down, and we used to live here for 2 weeks, 4 weeks out of the year. We used to come for. I grew up here. I love it here. Mind you, it was on the Gulf side, right? But we spent some time in Fort Lauderdale and everything. And so I was always Florida. It's always been my thing. I think even before we even started Fishman Nicosia, I told you, listen, I want to get a place in Florida. Like that's the goal. That's the plan. I know a lot of people are saying, "Oh, I want a cottage or something like that." And I told my wife, I'm like, we don't need a cottage. I'd rather just get a place in Florida.
Yes.
Right? Like that's going to be our thing. And I know everyone says about kids too with, schooling and all this stuff, right? And I thought that too, right? Oh, the kids need to be around other kids, right? And they definitely do, right? And look how my son was with your children over the last weekend, right? Like kids are around. He's having a great time. But let's talk about the environment of the world right now. It's kind of weird. You know, you hear about these things happening in schools and all the ideologies.
It was a big thing. Like, guns and security. It's a. Right? I live 10 minutes away from Parkland, where that shooting happened, in the Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School. It's terrifying, man. Like it's a real thing. You have to. Everybody's carrying here.
Oh yeah, and that's something that we don't have in Canada, right? But I'm okay with moving them around. My children around. What's the big deal, right? I feel like I'll teach my kids more value in life and even in God and faith and just who they are more than a teacher will. Because a teacher will have you for 8 months and they don't care. The next group of kids come through, right? And we have a lot of teachers around us in our circle of influence, right? And it's a job for them at the end of the day. Like there's a couple that will say that they're making a difference or doing a change of some sort, but the best change that we can do for our kids is us, right? We can show those values to them more than anybody else, right?
If you're looking to move with a Catholic school, a private Catholic school, like you went, would that be like a very important?
Yeah, I would, because have you explained the whole in Canada? Our public school is public and there's Catholic, right? We have the two.
I have not. I've mainly been on the Jewish side because that's been a lot of guests. But I think that's really important.
The public side in Canada, we have both. We have the public, which is kind of for, let's call it all religions, right? And then we have the Catholic side. So it's still both publicly funded.
But it's publicly funded.
Yeah,
correct.
So I've gone through that whole process, right?
You went to St. Mike's, didn't you?
I did. So I did a private high school, which was, and you know what? It was awesome. I love it. There's nothing I can say bad about it. If I can put my son through that, I would definitely do it.
What do you mean if?
Oh, because the prices are just ridiculous.
You're going to be just fine.
But yeah, I would love for him to do that, right? And it was an all boys school too, right? So the camaraderie that we had as a group was just insane. You know, we still keep in touch over all these years, and I can see a guy I haven't talked to in I want to say 10 years, but it's much longer than that now. And then we can pick up right where we left off from when we graduated high school. That was the beauty of it, right? And yes, it was Catholic, and my faith is very important, and it was great to have priests teaching us and, you know, having those conversations. It was awesome, right? And I want that for my kids as well.
So are you going to look for a community that that has places of worship, like a church that you can relate to? Is that going to be part of your search?
Yeah, mainly for school. Church, I got my quarrels with church too, right? But faith is with yourself. I feel spirituality, right? But again, that comes from us teaching everything too, right? I want to pass that on to my kids as well. But yeah, that definitely want to be in that realm. And I know in the States it's different, right? Like the Catholic, the Jewish, that's all private, right?
Yes.
And public's public.
Yes.
So that's going to be a little bit different. I guess we'd have to really look into, which we haven't really kind of searched or looked into it. I follow what you do on the podcast, right? On the teachers and the school boards that come through here, right?
Right.
But yeah, that's something that I would definitely keep in mind when it comes to moving down here.
So if finances was set, meaning we're already like rocking and rolling, super busy like we are in Toronto, and the Fishman Nicosia is kicking it here, and it's already starting to get really busy. But I mean, that's why I keep pushing it and coming down here. I need the help, but I need the support. But if I were to say to you, Joseph, we're ready to touch down, are you packing up and leaving?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about real estate, right? It's a different ball game here.
Totally.
Like I give the analogy, I feel like I've been playing real estate with my right hand tied behind my back and trying to do everything. And then over here, you can do, I don't want to say you can do whatever you want, but you can really hustle. And I'm not saying you can't hustle in Toronto, because there are a lot of good hustling real estate agents in Toronto.
It's different. You don't have to preamble. I think you need to go with that thought and explain it.
Yeah. So if you're really good at networking in Toronto, you do really well as a real estate agent. You agree with that? You look at your business. Right. I think your network is what kind of built your business
Absolutely.
up, right? But to generate new business in Toronto is very tough. And we've been doing it for 3, 4, maybe 5, 6 months now, and we're making the phones ring here a lot easier than we did in 2 years of us doing it in Toronto.
I'll take it even further. We're making the phone rings for our clients out of Toronto. They're saying, I want waterfront properties
exactly.
Here. Attack. I want, a place for seniors right here. You can go right at it. Whereas in Canada, because of the privacy laws and access to information.
So as a consumer,
you can't go at it.
In Canada, it's a great thing. Your data, your privacy is very well done in Canada,
sure.
Right? Here, it's a little bit more open. So you, as a business owner, as an entrepreneur, you can attack it so much better. And I don't mean you can do it in the sleazy way, but you can also do it in a very creative way.
Yeah.
Right. And I feel like if you try to use that creativity as an entrepreneur in Toronto, you get punished for it.
Sure.
Right. Either the cost is too much, or you got all these boards looking at you and potentially saying, you can't do that.
I think you need to open that up, because people are thinking like, you're not being vast. And let's put it like this. Here in Florida, if you have a tax lien on your house, it's public knowledge.
It's public knowledge.
If you have a standing order on your house, like you didn't clean up the lawn or whatever, or your place is starting to show some wear and tear, public knowledge. Everything that you actually want to find out about the buyers and sellers, specifically the seller side, it's all wide open to you. So if you have a buyer that says looking for a flip opportunity, well, you're going to go after distressed assets that are on the foreclosure list, which you don't have access to in Toronto.
No.
If you want to buy something from an income producing perspective, you have way more access here. What people don't understand, especially Torontonians, and I think this also relates to Californians in New York, is there are so many different types of communities here, where Toronto, it's freehold and condo.
Yes.
That's pretty much it.
Yeah.
Right? Here, you've got HOAs, you've got gated communities, you got waterfront communities, you got country club communities,
Over
you got
55s.
golf communities, 55, 65. And then the HOAs dictate their own terms within each community. So if you don't know what you're doing, you can lose your escrow, your deposit, because that's just the rules of the game. And you need to know them before. So it's not cookie cutter. You have to be a specialist in what it is that you're doing.
Key. You can specialize a little bit better rather than being such a broad term in Toronto. Right. Which I guess there's condo specialists in Toronto.
Yeah, but what's a condo specialist in Toronto?
Pre-construction.
It's not. Yeah, pre-construction. I did that for the last 20 years. It's an amazing play.
What I've also noticed is, listen, the Canadian real estate market has jumped up quite a bit. Listen, before I even got here, I did 2 offer presentations. So that's for people that are selling. We pick a date. We take all offers on
multiples
that date.
are back.
Multiples are back, and I always knew Toronto was definitely in that mix. Maybe even just before Christmas, we seen it come back, and it was kind of shocking people. And then it moved up to that suburbs, right? I want to keep it very vague so all the listeners kind of understand, right? So it started kicking in over there. Now I think it's going to start pushing it even further north, because people are getting priced out, right? Before I left, I did one listing where, and I told the guy I was going to mention it on the podcast, where we listed it and it went $265,000 over asking price.
What was it listed at?
It was listed at $1.5 million.
Oh, wow.
I had, thankfully they went on vacation. I said, okay, this is perfect. Give me the house to myself. Yeah. I got 105 showings in 6 days, and I got 13 offers come in. And it was just like, and it was a bloodbath. I didn't have to actually say, no, you got to raise your price. I had 3 guys just going at it and just bang, 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 bang. And then it's like we hit the 11th hour and I said, okay, we got to make a decision here. And my clients are extremely happy, right? But it's like, it's back.
That's because interest rates went up. There was this fear, and they didn't fix the problem.
No,
the problem is
a
supply issue, right? And people thought that realtors were saying that as a catchphrase. It's factual when you're on the ground like you and I. But look at that. Now you sold, was that a townhouse? Or
that was a freehold.
Freehold, detached?
Detached,
double car garage.
Yeah, nice, beautiful home.
So they got 176, something like that?
Yeah, 1765.
All right, great. Now, let's make an assumption that they don't have a mortgage on the house. And even if they do, it doesn't really play in what I'm about to say.
Well, he's doing something smart. He's actually moving more up north, so he's buying a bigger house, and he's going to have a very small mortgage, right?
Fine, great.
He's making that move.
Now, if you bought here, you could take that money, buy an investment property, below cash flow for you positive.
You could probably buy 3 or 4 of them.
Yeah, and you can buy a house that's a very decent to above average good house, and live in it and have the other place pay off your mortgages plus build off equity. You cannot do that in Toronto.
You can't. So we've even looked at we've done it before. We look at investment opportunities, even just flips, right? And the government puts so much. When I say government, it's a broad term. I should say municipalities and the province. They put so much red tape on everything. It's like, you guys need housing. I'm willing to invest my money to fix up these houses or to get people in them. But then you guys want to tax the crap out of us. Or you guys want to make these permitting for a year and a half.
Can I give you my conspiracy theory on this?
They love the fact that our housing prices are going up.
No. I think that they're incentivizing people that own homes, especially on the upper middle class, because I mean those price points, they're incentivizing them to sell and leave. They're losing their voter base. I think that it is. Oh,
that's a good.
I think that it's part of the strategy, because the kind of people that are leaving Canada today are not the people that would be voting for the government that's in place today.
No, I totally agree with that.
And now those people still have power of the pen, and they could vote until they get their green card. I think there's a lot to be said about that, and make sure that people get out and vote, whichever way you're voting. I don't care your political stance. And people think like I'm a staunch conservative. It's absolutely false. I'm conservative in some ways. Here I'm probably what I've been referred to as Republican light, or a quasi-Democrat. But
Republican
yeah,
light.
it's because like,
Yeah.
you know, I, you know, your stance on abortion, your stance on guns and all that stuff. I'm fiscally conservative, socially much more liberal, although that's changing with the woke culture that's happening. But I think it's part of the theory of incentivizing people to take all their equity out of there and leave. And it's going to be kind of like out of sight, out of mind, because the amount of people that have left there are in the queue to leave as well. Like in the form, we're talking about significant numbers, and they're all leaving from municipalities for the most part that are contrary to the voting. That's my perspective.
And let's be realistic. They're leaving with money, right?
Yeah.
And that's going to hurt the Canadian economy, my opinion. I am not against immigration. I come from immigrant.
I'm an immigrant.
Family. Yeah, so I'm all for it. But how can you bring in? What did we bring in? I think 1 million immigrants last year. How can you bring them in and we don't have housing for them?
I know.
And not only we don't have housing for them, we don't have housing for Canadians.
Yeah.
And it's like, and I'm not saying it's their fault. It's not their fault. It's our management's fault.
I think immigrants are the bedrock of all countries because they're the ones coming in and wanting change and
they're the ones
create
that
better
help
lives
the economy
for
and
themselves.
the country build. They takes it to the next level every time, right? And it's like, how can you bring these people over and they don't have a roof over their head? And not only that, let's not even talk about gas or food prices because those are ridiculous. Like, how can they even support themselves? Like we come from a background where, you know, we do okay. We work hard. We put food on the table, and it's still a struggle.
Yeah.
How are they able to do it? And then you find out, well, the government subsidizes it, right? Or they help out with it. Well, why aren't you helping us out then? Right? Like you can't say, oh, we'll do this and we won't do it for you guys. Like that's not fair, right? But I think that's what the main thing is that's been going on right now.
Joseph,
we have a housing crisis in Canada. It's disgusting. Like open it up. Like we have all this land in Canada and we live in like the smallest part of it. And I get it. There's a lot of tree huggers, our green belts we have that. I get it. Like it does. It filters our water towards Lake Ontario, and it's a great thing. But we need to find ways to expand too, right? We have tons and tons of land, and we're not utilizing it. And I get it. Different from the States where all our money is kind of pushed into Toronto or Montreal or Vancouver and all the major cities. So it's hard to really expand, but they need to do it. And they can't be doing 100 houses. They got to be doing like hundreds of thousands of houses. But let's talk about the greed side of things. Do you think a builder, especially in Toronto, wants to build hundreds of thousands of houses at a discount to get people houses? They're making so much money just building 1,000 of them. What incentive are they to do it? They rather have 1,000 headaches and make a ton of money than have 100,000 headaches just to make the same amount of money, right? And again, that comes from mismanagement from our municipalities and our governments that they should have ripped that red tape off, reduced the taxes so that, because all taxes just gets pushed onto the consumer, and you would be able to build everything. And that's coming from a background of what I've experienced with everything, right? And it's crazy. It's absolutely crazy. My father, when he's a carpenter by trade, he used to build like thousands of homes in a summer because they were building a ton of homes. They don't do that anymore. And you're on that development side of things too, right?
Yeah.
Well, what are they building? 150 units?
Yeah, like because
it
land
seems like a lot,
land
but
is
it's
so
not.
expensive, and they're building up, not out. So the style of homes have changed as well.
Like if you're Canadian, you have a detached single family home, you hit the lottery.
Yeah,
you agree on that? And don't get rid of it.
Because of the primary tax exemption, right?
Do not get rid of that thing because that thing is gold. That thing's better than gold.
I think at some point that the primary tax exemption for Canadians will probably be gone and away with, but I've been talking about that for years. So I think it's a political grenade, so nobody's going to touch it.
Yeah, if they do, they're going to have a lot of people that are going to
Joseph,
off with their heads.
If people and when people are ready to make the move, and they want to contact you to ship their property in Canada and move into South Florida, how can they connect us? How can they get a hold of you?
Well, they can call us. They can email us. They can.
What's your email?
Media.
What's your number?
Well, Joseph@fishmannicosia.com.
Right.
I'll give my direct line.
All right. Yeah,
right.
Brave guy.
416-258-0430.
All right.
You can check us up on Instagram.
Fishmannicosia.com.
Fishmannicosia.com is a great way to check out our website, and you'll see that transition to Florida. All our social media, you got Ronan's, you got mine, you have even our joint team one. And our YouTube is slowly growing, right? Not as quickly as Can't Shovel Hurricanes, but we'll get there.
Yeah, it's been an amazing resource. It's been a very cool journey. I have to have real authentic conversations with super cool people that are like-minded. And I just love the fact that I know that people are coming here to establish neighborhoods and families, and like I haven't seen this sort of growth in any one place since I remember Thornhill is an area in Toronto. Woodbridge is the same, where young families are moving into it, and that's where South Florida is right now. Yeah. Everybody's is moving down here.
And people forget, as a realtor, we speak with other real estate agents, right? And it's the same conversation I've been having. They're all like, yeah, I got clients that want to leave. Yeah. We've started a brokerage in Naples, Florida. Like I'm wowed. I'm like, wow, people think like us, right? Like maybe we weren't just a one-offs. Because the more times I talk with more agents, I'm like, wow, you guys are doing exactly what we're doing. So maybe this is the trend, right? It's good to hear and see, right?
Joseph, man, I'm glad you flew down. I know you didn't come down just for the podcast. I'm glad I get a chance to see you, not over Zoom. And I hope that you'll become my neighbor very, very soon.
Very soon.
Thanks, dude. All right. Talk to you.